hope you don't mind if I sit, because I'm lazy. Other reasons. This is the Keiskamma Altarpiece, and it's always good to give the entire contextual background. The way I always tell the story is, in 2000, a doctor and artist called Hofmeyr visited Hamburg for a weekend, and it turned out to be a very long weekend because she's still here. At the time, Hamburg was an absolutely derelict and desperate village. It was a community without hope. 97% unemployment, racked with HIV and AIDS. There were literally funerals every second or third day. Dreadful poverty, and people just given up. And Carol just thought she couldn't leave. And so she stayed. Her first priority as a doctor was to say, what can we do for people suffering from HIV/AIDS? It was in denialist years, we had ARVs weren't there yet. So she thought at least she could provide comfort, nutrition, and whatever medical aid help she could give to the people who were suffering. Now, one thing about Carol, if she was an entrepreneur, she'd be a billionaire, because there's no such thing as impossible in her. So the first thing she did was to find an empty building and get her son to break the lock, and she simply colonized it. She moved in a double-story building, begged, borrowed, and stole beds, pots, pans, whatever she needed, and within a couple of weeks had a hospice with 22 inpatient beds, who then could at least have her care as a doctor. She then got hold of someone from France who was good at doing vegetable gardens to come and teach all the community, organic vegetable gardens, and start one for the hospice to feed the people. And so that was her first priority. It backfired in the way in that within a few months, people with HIV/AIDS started checking themselves out of hospitals in PE, East London, Cape Town, Johannesburg, getting on taxis and coming to Hamburg because they heard there was a doctor who cares. But it was still an extraordinary sort of experience. And she was the first person or the first project in South Africa to have ARVs. She got a special permission from the government, it was the time of Thabo Mbeki, and in fact imported ARVs. And so Hamburg was the first village to have them. But to Carol, being well and getting well is not just about the body, just about good nutrition and medication. She believed that people needed much more than that. They needed a sense of self-worth, a sense of purpose, a sense of pride, and particularly her focus was on unemployed women, which is essentially the whole community, the dignity of labour and an income. And that's how the art project started. And over the years, obviously, it's grown. We've always done three things. One is small artworks that we do on an ongoing basis, which you will be buying and credit cards on the side. So that's beautiful cushion covers. They're all works of art. She refuses to call them art, they're not. Every one is an individual artwork. So that's cushion covers, bags, wall hangings, and so on. Then another dream of hers was that created ongoing employment and income, but she also wanted every two years initially, and then 4 years, to create a major artwork. An artwork which essentially addressed or reflected a particular socio-political, environmental, community, whatever issue of the day, in which referenced an historical artwork. So she said to herself, what's the first thing we need? And it is pride. Pride in our community, our traditions, and so on. And so she looked to history to say, what was an artwork made as a celebration? And it was the Bayeux Tapestry, which was made in 1066 by a French woman to commemorate the French victory over Britain in the Battle of Hastings. I remember learning about it at school. All I remember was that it was 72 yards long. It was the biggest tapestry in history. I knew nothing about who made it, why, or whatever.
What is yards in meters?
72 yards would be about 64 meters. Not 64. 39 inches to the yard. So Carol thought, well, let's look at the Bayeux and create a Hamburg Bayeux. So she then found a woman in France called Jackie Julinski, who still knew the stitch 1,000 years later that had been used in 1066. Got her at her own expense to fly here and teach the mamas how to do the Bayeux stitch. And they started the story from the Khoisan, the stand, all the way to O'Neill, the entire history of Eastern Cape. And they simply started at the beginning And eventually, one of the big things it does is it fulfills the prophecy of Nozeti. I don't know if you know about the course of cattle killing, but during the frontier wars, a young prophetess had a vision that if the Xhosa drove all their cattle into the sea and burned their crops, the British would get in their boats, sail away, and their cattle would return from the sea, bringing with them the fallen warriors of the Xhosa nation. 12 years old she was. The Xhosas believed her, they drove their cattle into the sea, and hundreds of thousands died from starvation, because of course the cattle never came back. And in the Hamburg Tapestry, in 2006, the cows do come back from the sea. And so at last, the prophecy of Nozeti. Nadine Wilson.
Yes.
Nozeti is one of our first and favourites of our artists. You've got to all the major works from the piece. When it was finished, we realised actually this was the biggest tapestry in history because it's 122 metres long. It was never meant to be longer than the bed. That's how long it took to tell a story. And that hangs permanently in Parliament. And I mean, you go there, if you're in Cape Town, and they arrange guided tours. And the thing is, it just goes on and on. The next one was this, the Keiskamma Altarpiece. And what Carol was looking for was some way to give comfort to those people suffering from HIV/AIDS and to their families, who just suffer with them. And she looked again back to history, and in 1515, there was a terrible outbreak of a plague in Germany called St. Anthony's Fire. And the German artist Matthias Grunewald felt he had to do something exactly the same for these people who are dying from incurable, very painful disease, St. Anthony's Fire. And so he created what's known as the Hofmeyr Altarpiece. And it was designed to say, we've got this terrible disease in the community, this artwork is to try to help you cope. So this is based on the Hofmeyr, it's exactly the same dimensions, but it is our interpretation of what Grunewald did 500 years ago. In the original, the centerpiece is a crucifix with Christ as he's never been depicted before or since, covered in sores, the sores of St. Anthony's Fire. Down at the bottom, there were village scenes of what was happening at the time, and Christ was flanked by his saints either side. And the message Grunewald was saying to people, you've got this terrible disease, but Christ is bearing the disease with you, and his saints are there to look after you. So when we did this, we said, well, we're not going to have a crucifix, it's a very male thing, and also while it's a very spiritual organization, it is not a particular religion, Keiskamma Trust. So you can sort of see a reference to the crucifix in the middle, there's a cross. And we said to ourselves, who are the saints of Keiskamma and American Goals? The grandmothers who were left to bring up the AIDS orphans. And so they are the saints of Hamburg. And so Nozeti, you're going to help us with the center one. Looks after lots of the little AIDS orphans. What's her name?
This one is a widow that is survived from our hospice at that time. She lost her husband. Luckily, she was safe.
She was okay. And then she looked after all these children.
Yes.
And this lady?
And this lady we put is as our saint, Mrs. Medima. By the time we were doing the Altarpiece, she was still alive. But the time we were exhibiting it in Grandstand,
She had died.
yes, we lost her because she was very old.
And the Garb is one of the many denominations of Christian groups that we have here in the Eastern Cape. And on the right is Susan. When Carol first decided to live here permanently, Susan arrived at her door and informed her that she worked for her. And Carol said, oh, is that the case? And Susan said, yes, I work for you. Working was not quite. For Susan, work is very different from the way Carol expected her to see work. She turned the kitchen into a field sort of kitchen for the Tender tribe. She baked acres of bread. She refused to absent herself. She was supposed to work only 2 days a week. She's absolutely wonderful. And for years, Carol kept begging her, because she was in her 90s by now, to retire on full pay. Nowhere. Susan walked from right the other end of the village to Carol's house, which is down near the sea, every single day, and just simply refused to retire. She's now 100, as of February this year, and is unstoppable. She's just quite remarkable. So she was the other saint. So if you look at it, the colours are somber. It's saying for people, we're sad, but in the sense of our handwork, the Gogos are here to comfort and look after us. Is there anything you'd like to add? Altarpiece helps me as well.
No, in fact, you'll see, yes, so many funerals, and they took photographs, and then they embroidered the photographs. So there's a lady in a pink dress in a photograph, and so on. So those are true.
Those are all real people.
Funerals. And then the man lying on the bed with all the red spots is that St. Anthony's fire.
That's St. Anthony's fire.
Just
It would help you,
expressing.
But Grunewald didn't want to leave people feeling that there's no hope, that it's just all about sadness and yes, Christ is there. He wanted to give them something, a sense of possibly a future. So this is the moment.
This is my big moment.
So the St. Altarpiece, this was him. So he was saying for people, you're suffering, but Christ is there, you're pain with you, and there is heaven. Nozeti, I want you to talk us through all of this and our add to it.
Okay. As you have noticed that the outside of the altarpiece is dark, because at first we didn't know anything, so that's why we chose the dark colors, because at that time there was no knowledge about it. Then, as we were doing it, and Carol was keep going, bringing some people to teach us more about HIV and AIDS, then we understand it. And then when we were doing the Altarpiece, we were ready to share our stories with the world that even if you are HIV positive, you can still carry on with the life. So then the middle part is about that hope. So because we have already seen that people have survived from the ARVs, then we were also hoping to have the real cure for the HIV and AIDS. Then we drew this big tree. This is a tree of hope, where we are hoping that HIV will disappear one day.
And is that the wild fig?
Sorry?
Is it the wild fig tree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then in the middle, we were doing a lot of things. Our customs and our beliefs in our culture. We were also praying to the ancestors, if you can see at the bottom.
Yeah.
And also at the top, Christianity and our customs. We were also doing both things because we want to be survived, we want to be healed. And at that side, there's Keiskamma, who was also one of our prophet, but he died now. But he was so connected to us and to the art.
I'll tell you a bit more about Keiskamma just now.
Okay, sure. And on the other side, that round circle is our village Hofmeyr. And there's water around because we are surrounded by water. At the back of Hofmeyr, there's the Tana River. At the front, there's the Keiskamma River. So we are like in an island.
Wonderful. Keiskamma was one of the most fascinating people I think I've ever met. He used to run all day. He was a tall man with huge feet in a pink party dress that he borrowed from his sister, because he said it was easier to run. Until she took it away, because the people in the village started teasing her about the party dress, so she took it away. But he had it for years. But far more importantly, is at night he's a brilliant guitarist, one of the last true traditional Xhosa guitarists. Beautiful composer, singer, and a mystic, a fascinating man. And sometimes at night when it rained, God would speak to him and say, go out on the dunes and dance. And in the pitch dark, he would go and dance on the dunes. And in the morning, he'd come out and there were artworks on the dunes. I mean, Alfie and I have been here on and off for 20 years. We've seen it 3 times.
And those zigzags are
The
something.
zigzags are too.
You tried to run up a sand dune. up and down and up and down.
It's quite funny.
With your legs.
When they started, the mamas, there's Gabby, this huge person, and Carol came along. So this tune, she says, that man's too big. There's, this is a women's project. So they had to get rid of the big Gabba, and then they got smaller over here. So they covered Gabba in birds and everything, made it smaller. Carol's two sons made a beautiful video of Gabba dancing on the dunes. And what I'd like to do, I promised to do this, if you remember me, Ryan and Michaela, is I'll put together, we've got a few little videos, one of Susan, whom we saw earlier, Gabba dancing on the dunes and so on. And then you can just share that with as many people as you can. But that's not all. There's yet one more layer. In the original Isenheim Altarpiece, obviously all of this was oil paints. And the final one he used woodwork, which we don't. So we said, what can we do to sort of replicate woodwork? And one of the things Carol was to say, we need three-dimensionality in some way. So she got one of these bead experts, wire and bead experts, to come from Cape Town to teach our mamas how to do beadwork. Plus, well, you'll see when we open it. Ready? So there we've got our version of woodwork at the top, so three-dimensionality. And I'll talk you through the three photos. So on the left is Susan, who was on the right in the first layer. In the middle is a remarkable woman called Eunice Manganya, who's our sort of main HIV/AIDS counsellor. I'll come back to her in a moment. And on the right, the lady who was in the centre in the very first one. And I always tell the story about Eunice because it is simply too delightful. She is larger than life. She is the most loving, caring character and very fun. And she worked in Cape Town for a while, so she decided to adopt a sort of Cape-coloured accent. And in 2006, this altarpiece went to Toronto for the opening of the World AIDS Conference. And Carol said it was so embarrassing because that was when Mantra Shabalala Mzimang went along and forgot to take her African garlic. So she was representing the South African government at this conference, and that Tava Becky's AIDS denialism. And the whole thing is that African potatoes and garlic would cure AIDS, you know. She forgot to bring them. I mean, it was unbelievable. So she went to a supermarket in Toronto and bought Canadian ones and pretended they were side. But Catherine, she just said it was too awful. But the funniest part was, this was a triumph. I mean, people just absolutely raved. So Eunice was there, and she once made me play this guy. She stands next, she says, Andy, you know, and we've got the altarpiece open, and there's this guy, and he's looking really close like this. And I look at him and I say, he's getting in everybody's way. So I look at him and I look at this African evidence. You know, that's her words, not mine. She said, and I realized he wasn't even matched. So she stuck out her bush and pushed this guy out of the way. So Carol saw this out of the corner of the eye and rushed over to Eunice and said, what were you doing? And Eunice said, well, he was in the way, so I was pushing him out of the way. What do you expect me to do? He's getting in everybody's way. So Carol said, but do you know who he is? And she said, I don't know. Carol said, that's Richard Gere. I just said, so who's he? And she said, well, he's a world famous, you know, film star. You said, I don't care. Anyway, front page of the Toronto Sun the next morning is Eunice and Richard Gere having a beer together. One of the reasons that Richard Gere was there is his brother is Professor David Gere. He's a very famous activist, sort of gay HIV AIDS activist at the University of California in Los Angeles. So he really took to Eunice, and he said to her that now, after Toronto, we have to send the altarpiece to UCLA, and he would host it. So this time, Eunice went alone, and Professor Gere wrote us about a week later and said, Eunice has become a minor rock star in Los Angeles, inter alia advising the gay community on how to dress better. Back in the day, whenever we had an opening of the altarpiece, it was only opened occasionally. You know, now I do this quite a lot. We do this lots of times here. There was always music. We'd have a choir, or our own music academy. So Eunice was there at UCLA at about 3 hours before the opening, she said to somebody, "This is a university." And the person said, yes. She said, "Bring me students." She ordered everybody about. And 3 hours later, the Altarpiece was opened with American UCLA students singing Xhosa. She said, "Turn them into a Xhosa choir," and there they were. So that is Eunice. Nozeti, over to you on the left and right panel.
The other sides, these two sides, they are similar. If you can look at them, because we were putting the aloe, and we've got those palm trees. The aloe we're using for the sauce, for the people. And also the aloe is so useful to us, even in our poultry, we are using it. I think we're gonna use more, because recently we have that chickens are dying. So we are going to use more of the aloe for our chickens, so that we don't get the disease. And our embroiderers also put their names here. The ones that are with the beads are our colleagues that died from the HIV. The ones that are embroidered with the red maroon color are our embroiderers who work here. And this is the river. This is our Keiskamma river. That we used to have lots of fishes. That we don't have.
There's still a few.
Oh.
The lovely thing is the Keiskamma winding up to the Hogsback, right at the top. Which, as some of you may know, nobody's totally certain if it's true or not. But apparently Hogsback inspired Tolkien to write the Hobbit. So that's... Lots of few people know he's born in Bloemfontein. And then on the right...
That side, that's a coral tree. The coral tree.
Yes.
That is a coral tree that we love a lot, the coral tree. And also we have taught that between humans and nature, we are connected. And the coral tree, we use those beads because we believe that it is a lucky bead. So in our places, we've got those lucky beads, hoping that the money is not going to be finished if we've got the lucky bead. And there's a lot of artworks that we are doing with those beads. It is the necklaces with those beads from the coral tree. Yes, like this. Yes, the black spot.
And this man next to me has got his lucky bean in his...
So that was the Keiskamma office. The next major work, in fact, Michaela referred to up there, whereas Carol was furious at just how dismissive the government was in terms of the ARVs and service delivery and everything. I mean, I have a lot of reason to do with the government conservation. And she wanted an artwork of anger. And the greatest anger artwork of all is obviously Picasso's Guernica. Just for those of you who haven't got the background, during the Spanish Civil War, the fascist dictator Franco ordered German bombers to bomb this little village called Guernica. He said, "Do it on market day, when there'll be lots of my citizens there." And these bombers came and bombed this little village. And in the artwork that Picasso did was just, horses being torn apart by shrapnel and people. It's this dreadful way that Carol said, we're that angry at this government, we're going to do our Guernica. It's exactly the size of the wall behind you. And we used to have both, and it was wonderful because of the sort of contrast in style, in feel, in everything. But it belongs now to the PE art gallery, so any of you in PE can go and see it. I'm probably going to borrow it back for 6 months. I'm going to try to see if we can get it back. And then there were more. Then what happened as the project became more and more famous, we got more and more commissions, and they have saved us. So thank you, WW. You were on today, but we owe you a huge debt of gratitude. It creates employment, it brings wealth into the community. And some of the more notable ones are things like the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, the Bombela Stadium, Marion Roberts' head office in Johannesburg. We did. But probably the most extraordinary was the Royal College of Physicians in London, which was founded by King Henry VIII 500 years ago. And 2 years ago was their 500th anniversary, and they asked us to do the commemoration tapestry. It is absolutely exquisite. It's a fine, fine artwork. So that's in London. Then we had WWF, and numerous other commissions, but they really, what are the other big ones, Michaela?
In my sort of time, our Sacred Ocean, which is a big round work looking at the sort of spiritual connection between also people here and the ocean, but also with the view towards conservation, that if we all understand that the ocean is sacred in more fundamental ways, we'll actually conserve it from an environmental perspective. So that work will come back, and Andy, that could
possibly go there,
And it revolves.
yeah.
And then we've covered in the CBC class in embroidery at Hofmeyr, and now we're working on a new enormous commission for them.
That is genuine. The Merck one I got so excited about. It's a diamond.
Yeah,
Sort of 4 meter high diamond, and each facet has different artworks on it. So, standing on a 750 kilogram base.
Yes, and then 800 kilogram base, and then during COVID we created our own tapestry. There was nothing really happening in 2020, so we crowdfunded to begin what we call the COVID resilience tapestry, and that inspired Craig. Actually, he saw that laid out on the floor and said, "This is something. We've got to do something," you know.
Yeah.
That also had it kind of showed the seasons of living through COVID from, I know it doesn't work like this, but from like winter to autumn to spring to summer. With the, and there we also had a fig tree at the center, and sort of so that you could see the effect of the seasons on that tree and the river in the background.
And where is that now?
It should be in there.
Not good enough. Guys, take more photos if you'd like. Any questions, obviously, we're happy to answer, and then go and burn your credit cards at the shop.